Welcome back to B&B Movie Reviews. This week we take some hits with the Fall Guy, enter a new kingdom with a different set of apes.
We also reconnect with some imaginary friends and take another trip down that Fury Road. Don't go anywhere, B&B is coming up next.
I'm gonna be sick.
You got this. You're the one.
Why you gotta say that? Why you gotta say that?
You've done this a million times.
And so have you. You know, you just jinxed it.
You just jinxed it.
Hey, Dan, I need to drive it in the car now, please. Okay, the tide's coming up. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Is that Jody?
Yes, it's Jody.
She say something about me?
Stop with your face. Stop it. Stop it. She didn't say anything about you. Get in the car.
Colt is the replacement stunt driver on Jody's new film, but how will she react when she finds out her ex is back in her life and back on her set in the movie adaptation, The Fall Guy? Brad, The Fall Guy.
Yes.
Yeah, adaptation of an old TV show.
One of my favorites.
Okay.
I loved The Fall Guy, and I only had like one desire for this movie, to have that truck. You gotta have the truck, and it's there, satisfied.
But dude, I needed the theme song.
We got it. We got it at the end.
At the end, a rendition of it. I kind of wanted the original, the classic theme song.
I don't know. To me, I felt like that was asking for too much.
Oh, really?
And the fact that we got it at the end, I was, really pleased to hear.
So this being an adaptation of a TV show, does this movie resemble, because this is so far removed, it's like doing The Fall Guy, does it resemble the TV
Bryan,
show? Does it need to?
You and I are the last two people on this planet who remember the Fall Guy TV show. I don't think anyone was concerned about that. I think it's kind of absurd that there is a remake of The Fall Guy, but if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it great, and I think they did.
I do too, man. First off, I love the fact that it really does focus in. I mean, we live in a time right now where it is probably a good time to redo something like The Fall Guy because of the conversation around stunt performers. And we've been talking about stunt performers a lot, how they deserve an Oscar. So bringing a movie like this that really does kind of show, that honors the stuntmen.
If every movie has to be an IP, let's at least do something interesting with that IP.
Yeah.
So you get The Fall Guy, you get David Leitch, a former stunt coordinator, and make a celebration of this art form.
Yeah.
And on that level alone, I think the movie is necessary.
Yeah.
It is so enjoyable. It's so fun. The stunts, the action are the star of this film. And then, Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling have great chemistry.
That's what I was about to go to next. I mean, them coming off Barbenheimer, Barbie and Oppenheimer last year. Then we see
The
these
Fall
two
Guy
together.
way more fun.
I would say so. Than Oppenheimer. Yeah, maybe Barbie too. Maybe. But yeah, bringing these two together. I mean, we've talked about Ryan Gosling and his comedic timing, and Emily Blunt. She seems like she has chemistry with every leading man that she acts against, The Rock and whoever else.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Yeah. So it's like bringing these two together seemed like a match made in heaven, and it really worked. And I think that that's the crux and the enjoyment of this movie is really seeing the romance between these two characters.
It really is a romantic comedy, right?
Yeah.
It's funny as all get out. It's got great action, but the romance has to work as well.
Yeah.
And those three elements of the movie are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But then I would say maybe the plot that is propelling these characters is less engaging, but I'm not mad about it either.
No, I really can't be, because you're right. The plot is super thin. I mean, when we get into the actual mystery and what's going on in the movie, where he has to try to find the leading man of the movie and where that goes, all of that stuff is really uninteresting to me. But again, like you were saying, it really just comes down to the stunt performances, and the chemistry between those two leads.
And the supporting players, right? Even within that thin plot, you know, you have Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's basically Tom Cruise, trying to take credit for all the stunts that he's doing in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he does a great job kind of playing that kind of actor, you know, putting that ego forward.
Yeah.
And even though, like, the mystery around that is like, who cares? At least the elements, the pieces in that mystery are solid.
You're right. The supporting cast is really good. I did like seeing Stephanie Shu, even though, you know, she kind of plays like a production assistant, doesn't really have a lot to do. And I mean, I love seeing her, especially coming off of Everything Everywhere All at Once. But she doesn't have much to do.
She deserves more. She deserves more than what this movie gives her.
She really does. But it's so funny though, man, like being on sets and being on part of crews, it's so interesting to see the behind the scenes of, like, you always like movies about the movie making process. And to see this movie and you see like all the crew members, the grips, all, you know, they're kind of like the background actors. And I always wonder, like, you know, it would be cool if they actually used the crew in the actual movie, or were these actually, you know, performers who played the part
This
of
blurs
grips.
the line a lot between the movie that's being made versus the story that you're watching.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it does the beautiful thing at the end during the credits, you know, Jackie Chan style. Let's show all the insane stunts and how we actually pulled all this stuff off. Did Ryan Gosling actually ride behind this truck and surf this giant sheet of metal? Yes, he did. And then somebody else did for him too.
Yes, exactly. But no, this was a lot of fun. I had a really, really good time with the Fall Guy. What's your rating?
Oh, it's a blast. You have to see it. You know, we're the B&B show. We give a B+ if we recommend it, a B- if we don't. It's definitely a recommendation. It's definitely a B+ for me.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a B+ for me. I know it has been doing great at the box office. Definitely go out to the theaters if you can to go see this movie. It's worth your time. So, yeah, those are our thoughts on The Fall Guy. When we return, we're going to return to the planet of the apes with the newest kingdom that they have. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Every minute counts in a poison emergency. That's why Poison Help is standing by 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in over 100 languages. Save Poison Help as a contact in your phone today. Call your local Poison Center at 1-800-222-1222.
What a wonderful day! What a wonderful day! Are we thankful for the words of Caesar? We are thankful. Do we bend our heads? We bend. Say his words. Say his words! What a wonderful day!
Is it as wonderful as Proximus Caesar proclaims, as Noah observes the rituals and culture of this new kingdom in the latest movie in the Ape saga, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? Bryan, we love the Apes franchise. Talk about an IP that needs to be celebrated every couple of years. Were you excited to see this return to this particular planet, our planet?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I was. Man, that Matt Reeves trilogy, I know Rupert Sanders did Rise, but that last... Rupert Wyatt, you're right.
I know my apes.
Too many Ruperts. But yeah, Rupert Wyatt did that first Rise, and then Matt Reeves took over and really elevated that trilogy and made that Caesar story so profound. So to kind of flash forward and then get a new set of apes, a new story, a new era, I was excited, man. I was excited to return back to this world.
For me, it's a lot like pre-Avengers Endgame and post-Avengers Endgame. Like,
interesting.
We had this beautiful arc, really well-established group of characters, and now we're done with it. and we're jumping ahead several generations to a new group of apes, and we get to see how the word, the history, the life of Caesar has evolved in the memory of the remaining apes.
Yeah.
And we have to fall in love with a whole bunch of new characters. And that's challenging, right? That could be difficult. And I don't know if I'm as immediately engaged with this story as I was the other one, but I had 3 movies to get engaged with it, right?
You're right. And I think it's interesting too, because it almost kind of is parallel to Rise, where we're getting introduced to new characters, and so we have to kind of follow. And I think Caesar and those group of apes that we followed in that, they ingratiated themselves so much to the audience that not having them there, it does take a while to kind of get used to. But I like the fact that this movie does take its time. We really do kind of fall into the tribe of Noah's tribe, his family, his father, his mother,
their rituals, their culture, the
exactly.
Eagle clan. And I was compelled by all of that. And I do feel like this movie is very measured. Some people might even say slow. But I liked the pace of the film because I liked the world so much, and I like the ideas that it is exploring. I think once the action kicks off and we finally get to meet, Proximus Caesar, like I don't know if I was as compelled by what that character was trying to accomplish as I was with just like hanging out with Noah and this grief and this tragedy that he has found himself in.
It's interesting because Proximus Caesar I think is a very interesting character, especially to watch on screen. The actor Kevin Durant, who we just saw in Abigail, is really chewing the scenery, and you can see his performance coming through. But you're right, a lot of the stuff that we do when we get to the actual kingdom is a little less interesting than exploring the world of Noah.
I just feel like the themes get a little muddy once we get to the kingdom, right? Like there's this idea that Caesar, apes together strong, and then many generations later that has become like, well, guess what? Let's control these apes. Slavery's fine. Apes together strong. They're doing my job for me. Like the way that you see religion weaponized, right, to control a populace. Like, okay, that's interesting. But then you have the human character of Nova, and then her desires and wants in this film and how they don't align with Owen Teague's Noah's wants and desires, and then that's when like okay, well, how are we supposed to feel about the humans versus the apes, or the apes, or the apes?
And I think that is probably the biggest issue with the movie, because like you were saying, when the humans are introduced and the character of Nova May, I guess they call all humans Nova, but
I wasn't going to spoil anything.
Oh, it's in the trailer.
Okay.
It's in the trailer.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't want to spoil it. but when that plot comes in, and like you say, where that goes, I think they do introduce something interesting where it could lead in future movies, but I don't think they really do a great job in really kind of
like, it's more than just ambiguous at the end. Like the relationship between Nova and Noah, right? Like how are we supposed to feel about them as a pair? Because some things go down in the climax that I think are unforgivable, and some characters are just I guess they're preaching radical forgiveness, the Caesar way.
I mean, there are alliances that are distinctly drawn in the sand, and what side do certain people or certain apes fall on?
And the Apes films from the very beginning have always been, mirrors to society, human society. We are supposed to see ourselves reflected in the problems of these characters. And it's definitely reflected in this film, but I feel like that mirror is cracked.
It's cracked.
And it's like we're seeing a fracture of everything that of what could be.
Of what could be.
Thematically.
Okay, So even with those issues towards the end of the film. What's your overall rating for this one?
I loved the Apes franchise. I just love living in this world. I like thinking about the ideas that they're exploring. I gotta go B+.
Same. I did have issues with it, and also I think I was kind of influenced a little bit with the crowd that I saw it with. But as I start to think about this movie more and more and what it's trying to accomplish, I gotta go B+ as well for me. So yeah,
a lot of it depends on the sequel.
True. It really does.
Which is a terrible thing.
Where this movie goes after that. So yeah. So those are our thoughts on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Next, we're going to get into some imaginary friends with If. So stay right there.
After rent and power, I can get groceries. It's sad to say food comes last. Anna from Texas. No one should have to worry where their next meal will come from. Together, we can end hunger. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
What happened? Well, she was putting that creepy doll to sleep. She stopped. She looked up. She definitely felt something. So I slowly walked over to her, and as I got close, Wait.
What are you doing? No. Don't do this. Hey, don't do this, okay? Blue. Hey. I swear to God, I will never speak to you again as long as I live. Don't do this, please. Look at me. Do not do that. Please. Hey. No.
Blue, the imaginary friend, wanders at night in search of a new kid to be friends with when his kid grows up and leaves him behind in John Krasinski's latest directorial effort with the kids' film, If.
Yep.
All right, John Krasinski, kind of changing directions a little bit from the Quiet Place movies.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
Still a high concept, though, right? He's a high concept guy.
He does like, that's interesting. Yeah, he does like high concepts. Yeah, because The Quiet Place definitely is a high concept, and then he's kind of going that way for a younger audience.
Bryan, they're imaginary friends, and they're called ifs.
Imagine. I get it. Yeah, this movie, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of manipulating emotions. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to the thought that people say, oh, this movie is bad or this movie doesn't work because it's trying to manipulate my emotions.
Well, every movie's doing that.
Exactly. That's the point of movies. But there is something behind that when a movie is trying to pull at your heartstrings, when it feels like there's not a lot of substance there behind it.
There is an aggressive use of a score in If, right? Like,
Yes.
Like that's something that you would sometimes say about John Williams and Steven Spielberg movies, right?
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do to engage with your audience.
True.
I think that If is an idea that is not fully formed.
Okay.
I feel like when our young heroine enters into this magical world where she discovers all of these imaginary friends, for some reason she is the chosen one. She has access to this realm of existence.
Yeah.
And then she runs wild through this secret universe. I don't think it's as, for me, as an old man, right, middle-aged, as an old man, it was not as engaging as maybe it would be for a child, but there were no kids in the audience that I saw it with, so I couldn't ask any of them what they thought of it.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you also say that as well, because seeing it in the theater that I saw it in, there was a demographic of older people going to see this movie, and that also gets me to the tone that Krasinski is going for, because
what's the audience that he's seeking?
Yes, because it feels like it's aimed towards kids, but yet it's dealing with some very heavy themes that I think adults can really kind of grasp with as well.
I think the movie's pretty morose, and I don't mind a kids' film, tackling adult themes.
Yeah.
I think if you look at The Goonies has a lot of adult themes in it. You look at The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, some serious heavy themes there.
Yeah.
Lots at stake in those stories, and there's a lot at stake in this story.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like understanding the rules of this world and how this world is going to then help this child through these heavy adult themes.
Yeah, because and I can't, and forgive me because I can't. The actress who plays.
I cannot remember either.
Yeah,
Bryan.
but I thought that she was really, really good.
I think the
movie.
performances are strong in this film. I think the script is a little unbalanced.
Yeah.
And I think the reveal at the end of this movie is telegraphed way early on.
I was going to ask you about that
and
too.
treats it like this, like aha, and it's like, well, we all knew what was happening here, right?
Well.
Did you not know?
As we got closer in the third act,
okay.
I don't want to give anything away, but I was like, I don't know. I wasn't even really paying attention to it, but you're right. It is telegraphed. I didn't really pick up on it, but it's extremely predictable.
And when we finally get to that moment, like to me, there should be more movie, right? Like that twist is a reveal and a climax, and then we're done. And I think we need to engage with this a little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah. And that was the unfortunate part. That is like when that twist and reveal is shown to her, to that character. It's like, okay, now the movie kicks into another gear.
To me, that should be the middle of the film.
Yes.
Why is that not the middle of the film?
That should kick it into another gear where we take this movie into another direction. But unfortunately, it happens at the tail end, and we don't get that resolve.
We spend so many scenes matchmaking invisible friends, imaginary friends, pardon me, imaginary friends with children who can't see them, and it just feels like a slog.
Yeah. It's just so repetitive. It's so repetitive. You're right. And by the time we get to the meat of what we wanted that's interesting, it's too late. What's your rating for this?
It's not a terrible movie.
No,
if you're at home and you're looking for something to rent, like this is a rental.
Yeah.
But for me, B-. I'm never watching this again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I'm a huge fan of John Krasinski. I love his Quiet Place movies. But you're right, it's a movie that I'll probably never watch again, and it's not terrible, but it's not a movie that I can really recommend. So yeah, I'm gonna go B- as well, unfortunately. So yeah, those are our thoughts on If, B- for both of us. So when we return, we go back to the wasteland, to the origin story of Furiosa. Stay right there.
When I got the opportunity to get her, there wasn't no choice. I told myself, I'm gonna take custody of my daughter. It's my baby. That's what we're supposed to do as men. Take care of our home, build a foundation, you know what I'm saying? Love, our money, she's my purpose. I'm here to walk with her, hold her hand until she can walk alone. Ain't nothing like being a father in this world.
Remember me.
You fabulous thing. You crawled out of a pitiless grave deeper than hell. Only one thing's gonna do that for you. Not hope. Hate. No shame in hate. It's one of the great forces of nature. That wasn't hope, that was instinct.
Furiosa finally comes face to face with Dementus, the man who ripped her from her home and her family in the vengeance-fueled prequel, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Bryan.
All right.
9 years since Fury Road. A lot of anticipation. George Miller is back with a prequel.
Yeah, which is interesting because Fury Road, 2015, that one came out. There are stories that say that George Miller had written this script before a frame of Fury Road was even
This does
filmed.
feel like a massive backstory that you would give to Charlize Theron. This is what your character has gone through to get to this point.
Yes.
That's all you need to know so you can play this character.
Yeah.
Because the Fury Road, there's very little like texture and substance to her character. And it's all in this movie. Did we need it though?
I say yes and no. Yes, on the side that I do like fleshing out this character because I do think it is additive when we do get to Fury Road. because I think it does add a lot to that movie and to her character. The no side of me is the time it takes to get to this movie, and we talked about this after we saw Furiosa, is the filmmaking process and how Fury Road was made and how this movie is made. And for me personally, I can only speak for myself, there's a bit of a disconnect, and it's not just because of Furiosa. It's an issue that I've had with filmmaking in this era, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know where your conversation's already going, because we've had it talking about The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, there's a heavy use of blue screen work here, and it's extremely noticeable.
Yeah.
For me, I got over it really quickly while watching this movie. George Miller's 80 some odd years old at this point. He doesn't want to go back to the desert and nearly kill himself making Fury Road. Fury Road really is a once in a lifetime movie.
That's true.
And to me, it's like a miracle of a film.
It is.
Nothing was ever going to top it. I never expected Furiosa to top it. To me, it's not even about like adding texture and backstory to the character of Furiosa, because I don't need that for Fury Road. I enjoyed Fury Road totally without it, right? So it's not necessary. To me, this is about like, do you enjoy living in this environment, this horrible wasteland? The answer is yes.
Yeah, and that was a great thing too, because I enjoyed being back in this world of the wasteland. I think that was probably one of my excitements, or the anticipatory nature of why it was like my #1 most anticipated movie, because I wanted to go back to this world. I wanted
to see the production design, the character design, you know, the landscape, you know, the performances. It's all so rich and inviting, even though most of it's also quite horrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But that's the great thing about movies, that we can enjoy this thing from afar. But you're right, going to the performances. I mean, we get introduced to this new character of Dementis, played by Chris Hemsworth.
Doing a wacky voice.
Doing a very wacky voice. He's really playing it. I mean, he's really going for broke. But also, and I don't want to not giving anything away, but as we get closer to the end of this movie, he has some dialogue, he has a monologue, which gives you a lot of backstory about him as a person and who he was.
The movie opens up with this little bit of narration from a historian character saying, like, who are we when the world is crumbling around us? All right, so to me, that's like a thesis statement.
Yes.
All right, let's hang on to that and watch this movie. And then we get to the end and we get to Dementis' speech to Furiosa. And you go, okay, what is Furiosa going to do? Who is she when the world is crumbling around her? And the answer it gives, for me, was unsatisfying. So thematically, I felt like it was a misstep, a little bit like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But just like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I love living here.
Exactly, you're right. I do think that was a misstep when it comes thematically to the character of Furiosa, but it does kind of hold some weight when we do look at, I think, the character of Dementis and just this world overall in general.
Yeah, and I do wonder, like, okay, you know, at the end there, maybe Furiosa doesn't learn that lesson in Furiosa, but does she learn it by the end of Fury Road? And I really do want to rewatch that movie now with the context of this film's ending.
I was thinking about that too. Like you say, having that thesis statement at the beginning and then following this movie through Fury Road, does that change the arc of the character of Furiosa? It's interesting though, man, because I think this movie, what this movie does, it makes Furiosa more of a compelling, more of a complex character. Even though Anya Taylor-Joy, who I think is great in the movie, doesn't really have a lot to say.
She's not even in the movie that much. She comes in like an hour and 10 minutes into the flick.
Yeah. She's kind of like how Max was in Fury Road. But I also, before we get out of this segment, to give credit to the girl who played young Furiosa, because she does do a lot of that heavy lifting in the first half of this movie. That really carries over to what Anya Taylor-Joy is doing with just her performance through her face. You're getting a lot of that from what we from what we have witnessed, what we've witnessed with Furiosa in the first half of the movie.
Yeah, and I feel like this film does play a lot with dread, foreboding. Like, it is a prequel. It's using our knowledge of Fury Road against us. It's challenging us with that knowledge. And I think that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Totally get what you're saying about the filmmaking.
Yeah,
2024 is very
me.
different than 2015.
Yeah, that's just me.
But we can't go home again, Bryan.
I know.
Nor would I want to.
Yeah, but it's always nice to reminisce. So what's your rating for this?
Oh, huge B+.
Yeah, I gotta say a B. Even though with my qualms about the filmmaking and the green screen.
And you gotta see it on the biggest screen possible, right?
Dude, yeah. I mean, hearing those engines rev up in IMAX, yeah, B+ for me as well. So, yeah, those are our thoughts on Furiosa. B+ for us. So let's go ahead and recap what we talked about today. We reviewed The Fall Guy, which we gave a B+. We also reviewed Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We both gave that a B+. If, the new kids film from John Krasinski, unfortunately it didn't work for us. We both gave that a B-. And Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I just like saying it that way.
You fall into this.
We give that a B+ as well.
I love your accent.
I know. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode of B&B Movie Reviews. Come be a part of the conversation. If you have questions, suggestions, feel free to email us at bnbmoviereviews@gmail.com. And with that, we will see you at the movies.